If you consistently wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning with an urgent, overwhelming need to use the restroom, and you simply blame it on drinking a glass of water before bed or chalk it up to a naturally aging bladder, you are making a fatal medical miscalculation. That midnight trip to the bathroom has absolutely nothing to do with your urinary tract. It is a terrifying biological alarm that your cardiovascular system is actively failing. During the day, your weakened heart lacks the mechanical pumping force required to push blood back up your legs against gravity. Fluid slowly leaks into your lower tissues, causing microscopic swelling. But when you lie flat in bed at night, gravity is finally neutralized. All of that trapped, toxic fluid rushes back into your bloodstream and overloads your kidneys, forcing them to rapidly excrete the fluid while you sleep. You think you just have a weak bladder, but you are actually experiencing the silent, early stages of right-sided heart failure. I am Dr. Andrew Morgan. For over 30 years, I have specialized in geriatric medicine, neurophysiology, and the absolute science of human longevity. The human body is a master of deception. When you cross the biological threshold of 75, the rules of survival fundamentally change. Your body's functional reserve, the deep cellular savings account that compensates for your minor injuries and illnesses, plummets to near zero. Because it lacks the energy to sound a loud alarm, your body masks its most catastrophic failures as minor, annoying inconveniences. If you dismiss these subtle changes as simply getting older, you are surrendering your autonomy without a fight. Today, we are going to expose the hidden physiological mutations that occur after 75. I will reveal the invisible, life-threatening mechanics behind these changes, and I will hand you the exact, aggressive medical blueprints to reverse this decay before your independence is permanently extinguished. Before we uncover the next terrifying biological indicator, I want you to drop your age in the comments below and tell me, what is one physical sensation or strange new habit you have developed recently that your doctor completely brushed off as normal aging? I read every single comment on this channel. Your deeply personal stories are the lifeblood of this community, and they guide the exact medical research I bring to the surface. Take a brave moment, leave your honest comment, and let us confront this medical gaslighting together. Returning to that midnight waking, we must understand the devastating pathophysiology of venous insufficiency and nighttime hydrostatic fluid shifts. When an older adult stands or sits for long hours, the microscopic valves in their leg veins, which are supposed to snap shut to prevent blood from flowing backward, become stiff and floppy due to advanced glycation and collagen loss. The blood pools heavily in the lower extremities. The sheer hydrostatic pressure forces blood plasma to literally weep out of the blood vessels and into the surrounding muscle tissue. Your heart is silently screaming, pumping against a massive wall of resistance all day long. When you lie down to sleep, that massive volume of weeping fluid re-enters the vascular system. Your kidneys panic at the sudden volume overload and work frantically to filter it out, waking you up multiple times a night. This destroys your deep, slow-wave sleep, which in turn accelerates cognitive decline and prevents your brain from clearing out Alzheimer's-associated plaques. My patient, Richard, an 80-year-old retired architect, was waking up 4 times a night. His urologist prescribed bladder-relaxing medications that only made him dizzy and constipated, while doing absolutely nothing to stop the waking. His bladder was fine. His vascular system was drowning. We immediately scrapped the medication and instituted aggressive gravitational flushing. The synergy prescription to cure this nocturnal cardiovascular trap is the strict implementation of pre-sleep elevation paired with a potent endothelial tonic. Every evening at exactly 6 o'clock, you must lie perfectly flat on the floor and elevate your legs straight up against a wall for 20 uninterrupted minutes. You must use gravity to forcefully drain the fluid from your legs back to your kidneys while you are still awake. Pair this mechanical drain with a clinical dose of standardized hawthorn berry extract taken with your dinner. Hawthorn is a deeply powerful cardiotonic that physically strengthens the contractile force of the heart muscle and dilates the peripheral blood vessels. By mechanically draining the fluid early and chemically fortifying the heart pump, Richard stopped waking up at night entirely. His sleep architecture was restored because his heart was no longer drowning in the dark. Let us transition to a physical warning sign that occurs in your living room, one that is so subtle you and your family likely find it amusing rather than alarming. Pay exact attention to how you sit down in a chair. If you lower yourself slowly, but for the final 3 or 4 inches, you completely lose control and simply free fall or drop heavily into the seat, you are experiencing the catastrophic, silent death of your eccentric muscle fibers. Geriatricians call this the hover drop, and it is an absolute blaring siren that your lower body is on the verge of a catastrophic mobility collapse. Skeletal muscle performs two distinct actions: concentric contraction, where the muscle shortens to push you up, and eccentric contraction, where the muscle lengthens under extreme tension to act as a biological shock absorber as you lower yourself down. As you cross 75 and sarcopenia rapidly accelerates, these eccentric fibers are the very first to physically die off and be replaced by marbled fat tissue. Your brain senses that your quadriceps no longer possess the structural tensile strength to support your body weight against gravity. To protect the muscle from tearing, your central nervous system simply cuts the electrical circuit when you are a few inches from the chair. It forces you to drop. You think you are just resting your legs, but you are actually experiencing a total neuromuscular short circuit. If you cannot control your descent into a chair, you possess absolutely zero ability to catch yourself if you stumble on a staircase. Eleanor, a 77-year-old former teacher, came to me with severe lower back pain. She was dropping into her dining chair multiple times a day, and the repeated impact was violently compressing her lumbar spine. Her previous doctor told her to buy a softer cushion. A cushion does not cure neuromuscular death. We had to actively rewire her brain to her legs. The synergy prescription for eccentric muscle failure is the aggressive implementation of negative resistance loading paired with a massive influx of leucine. I instructed Eleanor to perform reverse box squats. She had to stand in front of her chair, cross her arms, and lower herself down over an agonizingly slow count of 8 seconds, fighting gravity for every single millimeter. If she dropped, she had to stand up and do it again. Pair this intense mechanical torture with 30 grams of pure whey isolate, exceptionally high in leucine, consumed exactly 30 minutes prior to the movement. Leucine is the chemical key that unlocks the mTOR pathway, forcefully commanding the muscle tissue to rebuild the specific shock-absorbing fibers that were wasting away. Eleanor stopped dropping. She regained the power to yield to gravity, completely eliminating her back pain and bulletproofing her fall defenses. We must now examine a profound, invisible biological shift that occurs shortly after you finish a meal. If you have noticed that within 30 minutes of eating lunch or dinner, your hands and feet become suddenly freezing cold, and you find yourself reaching for a sweater or a blanket, even when the house is warm, you are not simply experiencing a sluggish metabolism. You are suffering from severe mesenteric ischemia and a catastrophic drop in your total blood volume. This phenomenon, known as postprandial thermal shifting, is a screaming alarm that your cardiovascular system no longer possesses the bandwidth to support your vital organs simultaneously. Digestion is an incredibly demanding physiological process. When you eat, your stomach and intestines require a massive, rapid influx of highly oxygenated blood to extract nutrients and fuel peristalsis, the muscular contractions of the gut. In a younger body with a robust blood volume and highly elastic arteries, the heart simply pumps slightly harder to deliver this blood to the digestive tract without compromising the rest of the body. However, after the age of 75, your total blood volume naturally decreases and your arteries become stiff and unyielding. When you eat a heavy meal, your gut chemically demands blood. But because there is no reserve, your central nervous system executes a ruthless triage protocol. It aggressively constricts the blood vessels in your arms, legs, hands, and feet, violently stealing the blood from your extremities and shunting it entirely to your gastrointestinal tract. You feel freezing cold because the warm blood has literally been drained from your limbs. This thermal shift is terrifying because it means your brain is likely suffering the exact same vascular theft. Millions of seniors experience profound brain fog, lethargy, and even fainting spells after a large meal because the blood has been pulled away from their cerebral cortex. My patient, Thomas, an 81-year-old retired engineer, was falling asleep at the table after every single dinner and required gloves indoors. His cardiovascular system was entirely bankrupted by the act of digesting food. The synergy prescription to cure postprandial vascular theft is the strict implementation of digestive predigestion paired with extreme arterial vasodilation. You must eliminate the massive blood demand of the gut by breaking the food down before it ever reaches your stomach. I instructed Thomas to consume a potent, full-spectrum digestive enzyme complex containing protease, amylase, and lipase exactly 10 minutes before his first bite of food. By preloading these enzymes, the stomach requires 70% less blood flow to physically break down the meal. Pair this chemical predigestion with a powerful thermal vasodilator, a highly concentrated ginger and cayenne pepper tea consumed warm alongside the meal. The gingerol and capsaicin compounds actively force the peripheral blood vessels in the hands and feet to remain dilated, preventing the central nervous system from clamping down and stealing your extremity blood. Thomas stopped needing gloves, and his post-meal exhaustion vanished entirely because we stopped his digestive tract from cannibalizing his circulatory system. Another deeply hidden sign of systemic breakdown manifests right on the skin of your lower legs, yet it is almost universally dismissed as a cosmetic annoyance. Roll up your pants and look at your shins. If the skin has become incredibly thin, glossy, and shiny, and if the hair that used to grow on your lower legs has completely disappeared, you are not experiencing a natural aging of the skin follicles. You are staring at a massive, silent crisis of peripheral artery disease, or PAD. Your leg tissues are quietly starving to death. Hair follicles and dermal layers require an immense, continuous supply of rich, oxygenated blood to survive and regenerate. As plaque builds up in the femoral and popliteal arteries of your legs, the microscopic capillary beds that feed the surface of your skin are choked off completely. Without oxygen and nutrients, the hair follicles physically die and fall out. The skin loses its cellular turnover rate, stretching thin and developing a tight, glossy, wax-like appearance. If the skin on your shins is shiny and hairless, it is an absolute guarantee that the deep muscle tissues underneath are also suffocating. This microvascular death is the primary precursor to severe claudication, agonizing leg pain when walking, and eventual deep tissue ulcers that refuse to heal. Margaret, a 76-year-old patient, proudly showed me her completely smooth, shiny calves, joking that she no longer needed to shave her legs. I did not laugh. I ordered an immediate ankle brachial index test to measure her vascular flow. The blood pressure in her ankles was drastically lower than in her arms. Her arteries were nearly occluded. The synergy prescription for microvascular starvation is the aggressive implementation of mechanical shear stress therapy paired with a potent nitric oxide catalyst. You must violently force the capillaries to reopen. Every single morning, before showering, you must use a stiff-bristled dry brush and aggressively scrub the skin of your lower legs in upward, circular motions toward the heart for 5 full minutes. This intense mechanical friction generates localized shear stress, forcing the dormant capillaries to expand. Pair this external friction with a massive internal dose of L-arginine combined with pine bark extract. This precise chemical combination triggers a massive release of nitric oxide directly into the peripheral bloodstream, forcefully dilating the hardened arteries and flooding the starving, shiny skin with life-saving oxygen and nutrients. You must actively resurrect the blood flow, or your tissues will slowly suffocate. We must now confront a terrifying neurological red flag that alters the very essence of how you interact with the world. Yet families often mistakenly write it off as the senior simply becoming grumpy or tired. Pay profound attention to the natural pitch and modulation of your voice during a normal conversation. If you or your family notice that your voice has become entirely flat, lacking any melodic intonation, emotion, or variation in volume, a condition geriatric neurologists call hypokinetic dysarthria, your central nervous system is waving a massive, catastrophic warning flag. Speaking with emotional inflection is not a conscious choice. It is an incredibly complex, involuntary motor function driven by the basal ganglia, the deep brain structure responsible for fluid movement and rhythm. When the brain begins to suffer from a massive drop in dopamine production, which is the absolute earliest, prodromal phase of Parkinson's disease and severe neurodegeneration, the basal ganglia loses its ability to send rapid, micro-adjusting signals to the vocal cords, the diaphragm, and the lips. The voice becomes locked in a rigid, robotic monotone. This loss of vocal modulation almost always precedes the physical hand tremors or shuffling gait by several years. When your voice goes flat, your brain is quietly signaling that its motor control centers are literally running out of the neurotransmitter fuel required to execute complex human behavior. I observed this chilling shift in my patient, William, a 75-year-old former salesman whose voice used to command the entire room. He came in for a routine checkup, and he spoke in a low, perfectly flat, emotionless drone. His wife said he had just lost his enthusiasm for life. He had not lost his enthusiasm. His substantia nigra, the dopamine factory in his brain, was actively dying. We refused to wait for the physical tremors to appear. The synergy prescription to fight this neurological motor decay is the aggressive induction of melodic intonation therapy paired heavily with neuroregenerative fungi. I instructed William to stop speaking his morning reading and start singing it. Every single day, he had to take a newspaper article and forcefully sing the words out loud to the tune of a familiar song for 15 minutes. This bizarre but highly researched therapy bypasses the damaged basal ganglia and forces the right hemisphere of the brain to physically rewire new motor pathways to the vocal cords. Pair this intense neurological rewiring with a dual-extracted lion's mane mushroom supplement and high-dose CDP choline. This chemical combination aggressively forces the brain to synthesize raw acetylcholine and sparks the production of nerve growth factor, providing the exact biological building blocks your brain requires to sprout new dendrites and reconnect the failing motor circuits before the damage spreads to your limbs. Equally dangerous, yet profoundly subtle, is a sudden shift in your physical eating mechanics. Pay close attention to your reaction to certain foods. If you find yourself quietly avoiding crunchy foods like raw carrots, nuts, crusty breads, or tough meats, not because of dental pain, but because your jaw simply feels exhausted, heavy, or achy after chewing for a few minutes, you are experiencing the silent atrophy of your masseter muscles and the degradation of your trigeminal nerve. The masseter, the primary muscle of the jaw, is pound for pound the strongest muscle in the human body. Because it is so powerful, it is deeply reliant on a flawless electrical connection from the trigeminal cranial nerve. As we age past 75, systemic inflammation and a lack of highly resistant, tough foods in the modern diet cause this massive muscle to rapidly lose its density. When the jaw muscles atrophy, it triggers a catastrophic biological chain reaction. The act of forceful chewing is biologically wired to pump oxygen-rich blood directly into the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain. When you stop chewing hard foods, you physically reduce the blood flow to your memory centers. Furthermore, a weak jaw alters your airway posture, leading to severe sleep apnea and nighttime hypoxia. Evelyn, an 82-year-old patient, had completely transitioned her diet to soft pastas, soups, and pureed vegetables. She complained of severe brain fog and a constant dull ache in the sides of her face. Her brain was literally being starved of the vascular pumping action that chewing provides. The synergy prescription for cranial nerve fatigue and masseter atrophy is the relentless practice of mastication resistance loading paired with deep intracellular magnesium. You must violently force your jaw muscles out of retirement. I instructed Evelyn to purchase pure, hard mastic gum, an incredibly tough, natural tree resin. She was required to chew this rock-hard resin for exactly 10 minutes a day, forcefully engaging the dying masseter muscles to maximum exhaustion. Pair this mechanical jaw training with highly absorbable magnesium malate. The intense chewing forces the muscle to rebuild its strength and pump blood to the brain, while the magnesium malate clears out the accumulated lactic acid in the jaw tissues, preventing the dull, aching spasms that originally made eating so difficult. Finally, we must address the most structurally devastating physical change that happens so slowly you never notice it until it is too late. Look at your profile in a mirror. If you notice that your head has drifted forward and a slight, rounded hump has developed at the base of your neck, a condition known as thoracic kyphosis, you are not just developing bad posture. You are actively, mechanically crushing your own vital organs. As the deep stabilizing muscles of your upper back weaken, gravity violently pulls your skull forward. For every inch your head drifts forward, it adds 10 pounds of sheer leverage weight to your cervical spine. The thoracic vertebrae begin to microfracture and fuse together. As your spine aggressively rounds forward, your rib cage collapses inward, reducing your total lung capacity by up to 30%. Your heart is literally squeezed inside a shrinking, bony cage, severely restricting its ability to fully expand and fill with blood. This posture does not just make you look old. It chemically suffocates you and forces your heart into early failure. The synergy prescription to reverse this fatal thoracic slump is the aggressive implementation of spinal extension blocking paired with intense decalcification. You must violently fight the forward pull of gravity. Every evening, you must roll a thick towel into a tight cylinder, place it exactly between your shoulder blades, and lie completely flat on your back on the floor for 10 minutes, allowing your arms to fall wide open. This mechanical wedge physically prees the fusing vertebrae apart and forcefully stretches the contracted pectoral muscles that are pulling your chest inward. Pair this brutal structural mobilization with a massive dose of vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 variant. Vitamin K2 acts as a biological traffic cop. It forcefully extracts the rigid, rogue calcium deposits out of your spinal ligaments and soft tissues and drives that calcium back into the deep bone matrix where it belongs. You must actively pry your spine open and chemically soften the tissues, or your own skeleton will eventually crush the life out of your organs. These 9 biological alarms, from the midnight fluid shifts and dropping into chairs, to the freezing hands, the shiny shins, the flat voice, and the collapsing spine, are not the inevitable curses of aging. They are the desperate, brilliant language of a body that is begging for intervention. You possess the total medical authority, the neurological plasticity, and the absolute biological power to aggressively intercept these failures and rewrite your physical future. But you must stop waiting for permission. You must attack your weaknesses today. If this unvarnished, brutal truth about the physiological realities of aging brought you profound value, I demand that you subscribe to this channel right now. Share this video with someone you love who is silently suffering from these exact, ignored warning signs. We publish rigorous, highly advanced medical content every single week designed specifically for adults who fiercely refuse to surrender their autonomy. Protect your structure, fortify your neurobiology, and never, ever accept a quiet decline. Thank you for your time, take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.